I do want to just recognize one other individual before we come to our closing speaker. Jim Woolsey alluded to Peter Vincent Pry's expertise on matters involving electromagnetic pulse, among many other things. But arguably one of the most frightening angles of attack of the Chinese over the decades against us and against, the world more generally has been its proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Peter Pry is an expert on that, having studied these matters at the Central Intelligence Agency and as a staff member on Capitol Hill in a number of capacities, also as the executive director of the incredibly important Congressional Commission on the Electromagnetic Pulse Threat. Peter Pry.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you for bringing back the Committee on the Present Danger, China, which does indeed pose an existential threat to the United States. I'd like to take before going into some of the proliferation issues, and since we've got such little time, to just reinforce from a 30,000-foot perspective some of what was said. There's a lot of references have been made today, for example, to the book Unrestricted Warfare, all right? One of the most two important lessons to take from that sort of haven't been mentioned, but I think it's been alluded to by previous speakers, is that first, China as a totalitarian state sees us as constantly at war. The idea of peace is a Western construct. Peace is not reflected in unrestricted warfare or in their other doctrinal writings. There are only the defeated and the victor or the dead. And that's basically where we are with them. The idea that we are right now at peace is our point of view. That's not their point of view. They are at war. They're at war with us. And the war is very real. We've talked a lot about economic warfare, and a lot of Americans think, well, economic warfare, that doesn't affect me, that just affects Wall Street, right? Every American city has got a manufacturing sector that today looks like a German city in the aftermath of World War II. It's been bombed out. Every American city is filled with people in despair, working class people that don't have jobs anymore. The suicide rate's never been higher, okay? There's despair in the country among these people. Crime rate is terrible. So the casualties are real enough. And if someone were to do a study on it, I'll bet more Americans have died in this war already than in Vietnam or since World War II. Now to go to the more technical, boring aspect of what I'm supposed to talk about, there's another book that hasn't been mentioned today by Shen-Wei Guan called Third World War, Total Information Warfare, which should be right on that shelf with unrestricted warfare. And this basically describes what Jim Woolsey had alluded to before about combining cyber warfare with nuclear EMP attack. It's a new way of warfare, okay, that would enable them to avoid the shooting war. The idea is to use a combination of cyber and EMP attack. Yes, a nuclear EMP attack is a cyber attack in their doctrine. To cause a blackout of North America, 99% of our military bases rely on the electric power grid for their electricity. It could shut down the whole country permanently by taking out the electric power grid, water, communications, everything depends directly or indirectly on electricity. And in effect, you could avoid having to actually have a shooting World War III and defeat us by this new way of warfare. And we're not prepared for it. We're not prepared for it. Thank you so much, Frank, for raising the alarm to America.